looks like there's a couple more people joining, which is great. So I think what we're going to do is start off with a couple of pieces of some videos, a few images to sort of orient everybody, remind you if you haven't seen the show, well, what's in it, and if you have, it'll remind you of specific pieces that are there. We're also going to get to see in the course of the talk some pieces that aren't in the show and some of Brian's workspaces and sort of more of his process. So that should be fun. People always ask, I feel like people are always asking questions about what goes into the art making. And for every artist, it's different. So it'll be interesting to hear a little more from Brian about how he does what he does. But Sophia, if you want to start us off with a sort of recap of what's in the show and just get the thing started, we can maybe answer some questions as we go along.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start with some of Brian's short videos, and then we'll move into our PowerPoint.
And I just want to, can I say one thing before we start?
Go ahead.
I just want to introduce Paula Esser. If people do not know, Paula Esser and I collaborate a lot on all the videos you're going to see we put together, the show we collaborated on, the show that we have, Paula was a major part of it. So I just want to introduce Paula.
Right, sorry.
She also had an exhibition at the Lyman, Allyn, and at Florence Griswold. Local.
Hello.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all I want to say.
I always assume everybody knows everybody, but of course you don't. But it's wonderful to see you again, Paula. And I do have some specific questions about how you guys work together once we see a little bit more. Before we do the videos, though, could you just say a word about what they are and what people are going to see? They're really fun, but you've been doing them now for quite a few years, and you do them for every single show. Is that right? Or you've started again to do them?
Yes, we've missed a couple of shows, but basically we are doing them for, it's, I don't want to call it a teaser, but it's a taste kind of the show, the theme of what's going on in the show. But it is like a little bit, as you'll see, they're a little bit more playful, fun, and it is to give another element to the work. So you'll see in the videos that it's not direct of the paintings, but you'll see, as I could say, it's just to give another element to the shows. Right. And you'll see, we can discuss it after you see them a little bit more about that. But right. So anyways, I think we're going to show 4 of them, if I'm correct. They were from different times, from like 2015 or 2016 till more recently. And they were past exhibitions. So, okay.
Let's see it.
Santa Catalina is a-waiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance. Romance, romance, romance. Water all around it, everywhere. Tropical trees and the salty air. But for me, the thing that's a-waiting there, romance. Seems so distant, 26 miles away, resting Swimming in the water serene. I'd work for anyone, even the Navy, who would float me to my island dream. 26 miles so near yet far, I'd swim with just some water wings and my guitar. I could leave the wings, but I'll leave the guitar for romance, 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 romance. 26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is a-waiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance.
I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy thing, you. I believe in miracles. Since you came along, you sexy thing. Where did you come from, baby?
How long have you been playing the trumpet?
Since I was a kid.
Ever want to do anything else?
No.
That trumpet's part of me. It's the best part.
Or maybe a trumpet player isn't much to be, but that's what I am. I'm a big bad trumpet player.
I'm gonna do things with this trumpet nobody's ever thought of doing.
That was terrific. I love those. I hadn't seen the the cows one until today, and it's so fun. I love it. The first one that we showed, was from a show that came to the Lyman Allyn at first, right? So
Yeah.
the butterfly show, which we'll see a few more slides of too. Do you want to talk a little bit about any of the others, how you make them, or?
I can go through them a little bit. Like the first one, as you said, that the exhibition Catch the Butterfly was at the Lyman Allyn, and then I showed it at the gallery in Boston. Basically, it's the same piece in the installation. We moved it there. So there is actually a movie. If you go to the Vimeo, you can see all the movies there at Vimeo. If you go to my website, it's linked to there on my website. And there is one from the show that we had there of yours. It's a little bit different. We chose those 4. So there's like 11, I think, of the videos. So that at the end of it, you get to see kind of what the show was. If you missed that show, basically, I'll just tell you quickly what it was. It was an installation where you walk through. So the butterflies were those scrolls that you saw at the end of that video were in black light, and you walk through it. So it's kind of between a fun house and a maze. So you walk through. So you lost your way a little bit. There you go. You lost your way inside there. So you could kind of, and there was mylar, so you saw yourself inside. There was a shiny mylar material, so you saw yourself within the butterflies.
It's an illusion of infinity.
Illusion, yes,
You
exactly.
just like the space, just it's open. You didn't know when it ends.
It kind of broke down the space inside there. So that was what that exhibition that we did with you guys, and that was down in the gallery downstairs. And yeah, the Glastonbury Gallery in 2014, which I found was quite interesting. Like, it gave a nice feeling for people. So it's a little bit different than the painting show that we're having
Very
right now.
different.
Can I
Yeah.
just interject that I was amazed at how that one little room, I mean, it's not a little room, but it's a single gallery. It became infinite in space with those mylar hangings and the black light. It was really magical. It transported us all. It was wonderful.
I think that it was very nice, the black light, because it gave you another dimension besides the butterfly prints, you know, that really kind of popped out. So I think everybody kind of really enjoyed it, like from children. And oh yeah, remember I think we had down in the basement or in the bottom floor, the ground, I guess it's not really ground, but we had those secret letters, you remember? And then it was more for the children, and they can go up.
Great.
And then you couldn't see, it was in a paint that you couldn't see. And then when you brought it up there, it appeared in the black light, which I thought was quite nice for whoever.
It really, it was a little bit of like a secret and a discovery, and it was fun. Yeah, and I think doing it on Mylar, you know, because they were mirrored, they sort of disappeared in the darkness in some ways. And so the butterflies, those like prints just hovered in midair almost, you know, those sort of day glow butterflies. It was really cool. So, and then these, of course, were these long, like 30-foot long paper scrolls that hung from the second floor all the way and down into the basement. And we'll get another sense of when you made them, what was involved there, because they were these massive paper scrolls, just huge, and just like dealing with the sheer size of them was pretty impressive. Of course, they just rolled up to nothing too when you put them in the back of your car.
Exactly right. They're scrolls. They were scrolls. So you could really roll them up, which was kind of quite beautiful. Like antiquity scrolls. And then the second one was that was a show that I had well, I won't say last year, but it's 2019, and it was called Pool Party, as you saw. And you know, we were playing, because I did a lot of paintings with a sense of the pool party. It wasn't completely all that, because I had also animals in there, but it gave a little bit of a feeling of that show, the title and what my theme was, and the color palettes and everything. So that kind of embedded sort of, there was a so that's kind of in that one. That's what you saw. That one's pretty direct. You saw like what we were going for in that one. Then the next one was a show that I had, Do You Believe in Miracles? And that one is kind of fun because actually we sort of, as you saw Paula, like in like the different, I painted Paula a lot in that with animals. So she was posing sort of as the painting, sort of. If you didn't see the show, you wouldn't see, but I painted her with a cheetah, for example, and a lion. So she was actually, and she had the sunflower. So we kind of recreated it a little bit, you know, when you saw that show at the time that it was. So that's a little bit why you saw her with the flowers and stuff. So it was a little bit more direct in that one, but it still holds up without having that, because you see the elements of the zebra walking backwards and stuff like that. And then what was the last one? Was the
Fox.
The
fox?
cow.
No. What was-
I think.
Cows.
I
Oh,
think cows.
Oh, then the other one was I was working with a gallery in France, and it was called Bell Chess 55. So everything had to be 55 seconds. And that one, I don't know, that was just kind of like playful. I was just kind of, it wasn't tied to a show, that one. And I can tell you a quick funny story about that one. We did that at Allyn Farms. I'm very good friends with Carol, and she let us, use the space there. We started, because we wanted the cows in the back, we started in the field, like the furthest away from the barn, the furthest. And, if everybody knows, Allyn Farms is quite a big space there. And we were all the way out there, we set up, the kids came in and moved the table, the cows would move. And the shot was no good. We were there all day moving and the last shot was like just in front of the barn. They're going to sleep. And so it was this whole process of getting that shot that we wanted, which in the end was worth it, but of them being right there behind and hanging out. So that was just for like a publicity for that gallery. Everybody had done one. So that was for the show. So anyways, funny story of that.
Yeah. Maybe it's easier to paint cows and actually work with them.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's appropriate because you showed me a piece that was in your studio now that you're working on cows, right?
Yeah. Well, there were sheep. Those were sheep. Yeah.
Oh, were
Yes.
they sheep? Okay, it was from a distance.
Yeah.
Some kind of ungulate. Anyway,
Well,
all right.
Oh, that's right. I
Sophia,
am
maybe-
doing it. I'm sorry. I am doing a longhorn right now too. So I am doing a cow. I'm sorry.
Sophia, maybe we can go back to the beginning and start with a recap of what's in the show now. That's up at Lyman Allyn, because this show focuses very on animals and sort of myth making or meaning making and across cultures.
everybody knows that it's
So
doing
the
the
show
same.
is called Almost
There
True
you go.
Tales, and these are some of the pieces in it. This is not everything that's in the show, but it's a good selection, I would say.
Love those.
Mm. Okay, before we move on to that section, I did have some questions that people have sent to us. So, and some of them we talked about at the opening for those of us who were here, but maybe we can revisit them in sort of a new way. If Sophia, if you could go back to slide 8, one of the questions we got was about this. Actually, before I ask the question, maybe what you could do is give us just like the 30-second explanation of what the theme of the show is, because it's better to come from you, I think. I can give my interpretation of what the show is, but if you could say in your own words what you were thinking about, what the theme, what the grouping means, what this
Okay.
body of work is.
Well, this body of work, I was thinking more of fables. As the story, as the title goes, Almost True Tales. I was very much interested in the lineage of tales throughout history that as humans that we've been passing down, like Aesop, for example. He recurs a lot in my paintings, and this one where we quote along the pieces, but it's all tales basically as humans pass down from one generation to the next. In the beginning, we just had the word, we were just telling it. I would tell you, and then the next person. So basically, they are all tying loosely to fables. Some of the paintings, when you come to the exhibition, will have, a lot of them actually. I shouldn't say some of them. Most of them actually tell you a fable, which is tied to it. But I just want to say it's not linear. There's a lot of other fables that could be tied to that. And I didn't specifically make that painting for that fable. I'm giving you, the viewer, a possibility of what it could be about. So like, for example, this one was more loosely. This one does not have a story. Whereas another one, like The Fox and the Crows, that one has a direct fable from Aesop. So basically, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I was going for in this show. And I found it kind of really nice, Almost True Tales, because right now of what's going on in the world, of what we've kind of been like subject to, like right now with the virus and everything, and also like how the news is like flashing so fast for us and everything. So that's like another fable. I didn't really, mine is more like playing with the folk fables with the animals and stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of quickly like a little bit what I'm going for in this show.
Yeah, Sophia, could you go to, I must have misnumbered my slides, but could you go to the one that's The Fox and the Crow? There we go. So yeah, this one, for example, this one is called Not All the Songs Are Worth Singing. And we did include the Aesop's fable about the fox and the crow, the fox having come upon a crow who has a piece of cheese in her beak, and the fox wants it. And so he flatters her and says she must be a great singer. she opens her beak to caw, which of course crows are not known as beautiful singers, and of course the cheese falls out and the fox makes off with it. But like all the other pieces where you've tied a sort of fable to it, it could be another fable. It could be from a embody meaning from another culture. The figures in the paintings are ambiguous, and so I feel like the viewer brings their own meaning, brings everything that they think of is sort of is in terms of meaning that we ascribe to animals from whatever cultural background they come from too. So it's kind of like the viewer is building the meaning too. It's what you brought to it, and then they're doing the rest of the work themselves.
Yeah,
Is that right?
there's this story that we have put there, and that it ties to what I have painted there, but it is also it can be a little bit more open. It doesn't have to be directly that. I mean, and paintings are very open to discussion. It's not a very linear. I always feel like painting isn't very linear. Even if it's a very figurative painting, it still has a big interpretation.
Right.
And the paintings that's why one of the love affairs I have with painting, because it's able to do that, express a facet of time in a stationary, it's not like a movie where you see it, but it expresses time within that space. So and also like the fables, we were talking about the fables, but also the patterns. I was very much, as you see in this one, the folk patterns that you see like in Poland or in Russia or Sweden, and you see them decorative patterns that they use, the motifs for like in their houses on like in different how do you want to say, like in the patterns, as you see the folk patterns, we all know, we'll see it in the next slides, what some of those motifs, and they use them in decorative different things. So I'm using them inside this folk tale too, so to give another layer or another idea. And for example, this one here, this pattern here, some of them I've used from historical things I've found through the web, and this one actually, the rug that I have in my studio, I took pieces which has the same element to give that sensibility that everybody can use the different pieces from their environment and stuff. So this is one I was actually using from my rug, loosely from my rug that had the blow up portion of my old Oriental rug that I have, and then some of them were more direct from history.
Yeah. Sophia, maybe we could skip to that next section and take a look at some of those folk patterns that Brian brought examples of, just as sort of inspiration. Can you tell us about any of these pieces? I mean, some of them are cut paper. Some of them are based.
There's a big tradition in like Poland, Ukraine, Russia, like decorative eggs, for example. We all know those from Russia. Sweden has kind of these patterns like this that they use. Even Americans, like the tapestries that we have made, like I didn't show any here, but Americans had that too, that we were doing in colonial times. They were making, like weaving. So I just found, I've always been attracted to those. And so it was nice to really embed that into the work this time. So I was more loosely using them. I wasn't very specifically, like it wasn't just Russian or it wasn't just Polish. I was taking, like, that's why I brought up the rug, because I was taking from my actual environment around me also. But see, like that one that you just were on, here's the rugs, but the one you were on, like there's the two, I guess, peacocks, but I don't two like peacocks or roosters, but I did the two roosters together, like I kind of did the almost exact same thing, except in 2020.
Yeah. And there's that mirror image
that I was using.
Yeah. And
there's the rugs.
Yeah, it's neat how you're pulling from two different folk traditions, the sort of story-based traditions that people have, that people told each other again and again, and then also the sort of decorative arts tradition. There are people, these motifs are recurring in textiles and paper goods and painted surfaces and like all kinds of decorative arts, and you're marrying them together while also reinterpreting it in a sort of, giving people an opportunity to sort of consider how they connect and consider all the ways that we it's just as a species, how we have these constants in our lives. We have, constants in our culture that we keep coming back to. We keep coming back to animals and art. We keep coming back to deck arts and pattern and symmetry and balance and all those things that you use that are in the paintings. Can you tell us about this slide?
Oh, I love this one. This is from a palazzo in Italy, and it's a mosaic. And this in this palazzo there's just one section. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go. I had a show in Italy, and I was supposed to go, but during the pandemic, I couldn't go. And I was going to go, and I have not even visited this place, but I've painted this quite a few times now since I've kind of fallen in love with it, because it just, and when I saw it like in bed, like I just felt like, I don't know, it just was me. I loved it, and I just wanted to paint it. I'm kind of addicted to painting. I kind of just want to paint that right now, like in different ways. And I've done quite a few of them already. Maybe 8 now or 9, but I want to just paint that. I wish I could just do a show with like maybe 50 of those, but anyways, I don't know why there's such an attraction to it for me, but anyways, you have one of those in the show that I have done, very similar to this one. That's why and that was the first time I actually did it so similar to that. The other times I've done a little bit different or mixed it, it wasn't exactly the first time I had done it in one of my shows. It was loose based on it. And then I just started getting more and more directly kind of mimicking it in a way, and in my style, but like kind of like the one you have in your show basically is that for what you see there, that mosaic. It's just because one thing I really like about that, because it's in mosaic, it gives that folk element, because mosaics obviously is not painterly. You have the little, if you don't know mosaics, they're just little pieces of tiles put together. So it gives that sensibility. And plus it's done in like, I don't know, 15th century, I think. So it also
I think it's actually earlier than that. I think
it is 12 or something, right?
12th, yeah.
But that's already in that time. They're still the way they were working everything, and I'm just attracted to that. I just really like the way it's aesthetically, the way it looks. So for me, like I that's where that's coming from. I'm just really attracted. I don't know. How can I explain? I just really love it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
As a painter, that's more painterly. Like I just want to paint that as being a painter. Sometimes like you have thoughts and ideas you want to express, but like me as a painter, sometimes I love paint, and I love putting paint on the canvas and moving it around. So that's a little bit, I mean, it does have a theme to it, but that is kind of an expression on that.
Yeah. Well, and it works well with the rest of the show, because we had two questions, but when someone asked which palazzo is it from, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, but this is from the Palazzo di Normanni, so the Norman palace in Palermo, Sicily. So at that time, really, those leopards would have been like an exotic, I mean, we're talking about the Mediterranean world. There was a lot of trade, but they would have held a lot of meaning. They're exotic animals. They're a symbol of sort of power and wealth and cosmopolitanism and that sort of thing too. Exactly. So, so again, it's like using animals to convey meaning.
Which that's what I love about painting the animals, because we've used them for, that's always been part of our, the first paintings we find, what do we see there? We see bison, we see our hand, so we've always used them. So I've kind of had this love affair of painting animals in different ways, sometimes very realistic, sometimes, or I shouldn't say realistic, but very like in an environment. And now, now been making these patterns and doing a little bit different, but I have kind of, most part of my career, there's been some element of animals within my paintings. Lots of times I used to use my children with an animal.
There's a wonderful piece in the museum's collection of your son with a bird on his head, which is just great.
That's a beautiful piece.
It's a beautiful painting. Sophia, could we go back to I think it's slide there, not that one, but the one that he's referring to that is almost sort of not a copy of it, but his interpretation of that piece. I think it's number 10. Yep, there it is. So people can get another shot of that. So yeah, of course, this is in your style, and it's but it is definitely, it's clear where you got it, where you got the idea.
And yeah, and if you haven't seen the show, it's quite big. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
a massive piece, but 48 by 72 inches. So it's a pretty
That's big, yeah.
big size painting, So it
Yeah.
has a different feeling than when you see it on the computer screen.
Right. And that's true of all these pieces. Most of them are fairly monumental in scale. And when you're standing in front of something that is 6 feet wide and 4 feet high, it has a very different feel. So let's see, what else can we
We were going to go about talk about the texture.
Yes, I wanted to move on to let's talk about there's the next section is called painting details, and we have a little bit of some of sort of the texture. These are shots just to indicate kind of the texture of the paintings, and something about the way you're applying the paint that is layered in a way that really makes it more complex and gives it great depth and nuance. So one question that we had is just how you're doing that. What are the techniques that you're using? I mean, obviously there's a palette knife there. We see on the right-hand side, we see lots of different layers, different colors. How do you approach this? What kind of effect are you going for when you're really working with those layers and building them up?
Well, I guess that's kind of what am I going for? I do definitely like decaying walls and things like that, are paths. I always love paths, like how it's worn for a certain way. So once I worked on a farm, and it was a sheep farm, and they had 400 sheep. So every day a sheep would rub against the wood, and this wood would create, just by the wool of a sheep, it would create this beautiful patina on there. So I'm always attracted to patinas and different, naturally, my car that I have been playing with during Corona times, from 1980, it's got rust, but somehow I love that rust on there. I'm like, do I want to clean it up? I don't really want to, because it looks so, it has such a cool effect. So I guess, as you see on the piece to the right, it's a very good close up, because you can see it's almost like my palette is the one to, I'm sorry, to the right is a piece of the painting, and to the left is my palette. You see my palette almost doesn't look like the painting, but that little tiny detail, it's two different sizes. It's a smaller detail on the right, but it has this, a sense of what I kind of enjoy. So the palette kind of then goes right onto the canvas. So I don't know if that's really answering the question. I do love texture of paint. If I'm in a museum, the way it's painted actually is almost sometimes more important than what the whole image looks like, but not really true, because I started as a photographer, so I do love composition and everything. So I can't really say that, but I do love the way paint looks on canvas, and when people really kind of have a love affair with the way the paint is, they apply it, I'm really attracted to that. So I'm trying to give this sensibility, and I love giving I don't know if the right word is illusion, but when I'm painting, so on the right-hand side, you can see that there's the canvas popping. Oh, I'm pointing again. You guys don't know what I'm pointing at. You can see the canvas, it's upper, it's the orange color. That's the canvas coming through. But then right under, you see a glob of paint. But when you stand back, it kind of goes together. Not impressionistic, but it gives that sense of solid, but not. And it's it's soft, and but hard, So I love playing with those layers like that, just having a love affair with the paint, actually, So when you look at it, you're like, oh, he was having fun, or he looked like an exciting, even if the piece is serious, but the paint kind of is alive, That's what I'm trying to get across in the actual act of the paint on the canvas, not even thinking about a theme or anything, just if I'm painting a person, or if I'm painting a flower, or if I'm painting, a little bit more abstract, the animals, or that's what I'm more trying to get at, a love affair of the paint, the artist as a painter.
Yeah, that definitely comes through. So you're using, for people who, for the layperson, you're using a palette knife, you're using brushes.
Yeah, I use a little bit of everything. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I use a little bit of everything. I use the palette knife a lot. I do use the palette knife quite a bit lately, but I also have I've used it a lot, so I got really good at to like sometimes lots of times I let it be there, like so you can see it was a palette knife that made it. If you saw the paintings up close, it's hard to see on these pictures, but anybody that's painting or not painting, they can kind of see that. But I also been able to use the palette knife where you can't really see anymore because I use it as a blending tool. But yeah, I use brushes. Of course, I use lots of brushes, and like, you know, it depends on the mood I'm in. You know, I could do the whole painting in a brush, and then at the end I'll just scrape away at it with the knife, or I can do the painting with a knife, or just intermix it. You know, it's not really a rhyme or reason. I'm not a very like linear person. That's why it was important to show the videos at the beginning, because I don't do things very linearly. It's a little bit more this way and that way, and it's a little more abstract, and it's not a direct path, you know. So that's why I'm very attracted to painting, because it's not a very direct path. I mean, I guess it could be for some people, but for me, it's not. It's not a very it's direct. Meaning, it is direct because I take the paint from the tube or from the container and I put it onto the mix it around and put it directly on there. But that's direct, but it's not a linear.
But this sort of feeds into another question that was posed, and that is, when you're approaching a work, when you're starting a new work or working through it, do you have, you know, I'm assuming the answer is no, that it's not, I'm trying to get to this point. It's more, let's go along and see how it develops, that sort of thing. Is it more organic in that way? Does it more of a circular, you wait, you know, do you develop these layers and textures based on an idea that you set out with in the beginning, or is it more just I'm going to let the paint lead me where it goes?
That's a little bit sometimes yes, sometimes no. Like sometimes I directly have an idea where I'm going with it. Other times I'm more and more I'm trying to come up with the idea that it is direct, you know, and I've been kind of doing that because I've had that in my life. And then other times I'm painting and I don't really know where I'm going. And sometimes it's troublesome, you know, like, so I am kind of getting better at being, I don't want to say better, but I am progressing to be more choosing what I want and going for it, you know. But some of my favorite paintings in my career so far are like paintings that I worked for a long time on and then came back to them and reworked them. And if I didn't really not have that ambiguous, not knowing what I was doing, I would never have been able to get that painting to where it was, because so I have to, like, you know, I feel it's kind of important to be able to not know sometimes, and to know, and to be very direct sometimes, and to know. So for me, that's kind of been I don't necessarily love not knowing, because it's like, I could be like, the other day I was working in my studio all day and I really was putting a lot of effort in it. I left the studio and I felt like I did nothing, you know, because I didn't have not an end product, but I just felt like I didn't get anywhere, and it was a little bit your mind. So like I didn't have, so it's kind of like, that's just part of, I think, probably many people I talk with as artists, they go through that. So so sometimes I'm trying to be, I would like to be a little bit more direct, so you know what I want all the time. So it isn't like, I'm not really going, I kind of know what I want, you know, and I kind of go for it. And sometimes it takes longer than other times, but no, it's not, I don't think I would say I just see what happens. It's not really me.
Not all serendipity.
No, it's definitely not. I kind of know, like, I know what I want the paint quality to look like. It's just a matter of getting it to that point. And then sometimes it works better than others. You know, I know colors that I want it to look like color wise, but sometimes it takes longer. You know, I'll get it to there eventually. So, but you know, it's a matter of keep putting, because it's layers, it's paint. You know, you put on a layer, you put another layer on. So that's what's the beautiful thing about oil paint, is you can keep reworking into it, and you know, getting to a different, you know, lushness that you want, or make it candy painting.
Do you have paintings that are sort of drafts that you've been working on or been frustrated by, that are still, you know, you come back to every now and then and still don't know what to do with? I mean, I feel like that's something that, you know, other artists deal with sometimes, is, you know, having to sort of revisit things that haven't worked in the past and still, do you have things that are sort of like rough drafts that are hanging around that you keep coming back to, or we haven't quite like solved yet?
There's some that I'm working on that happen, but I tend to not, like, if it kind of gets to that point, I tend to like want to work on something else. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, but I do work on things for a longer period of time, so that I know that I need to work on it. Like, so it's maybe not like, it's not, basically I work on a lot of paintings at one time. So to answer your question, I work on a lot of paintings at one time. I don't just do one painting and then I finish and then go to the next one. I don't do that. I work on like right now I'm working on another show for Boston right now. And I have like, right now I have like 10 things I'm working on. Plus I have other ideas that I'm like working on in the sketch form. So I am working on a lot of different things at one time. So in that sense, I can put it down and then revisit it. So I guess that's kind of, I don't really, if it's been sitting around a long time, I don't know. I guess I can go back to it, but I don't know. It sounds like it's a bad way. Like for me,
Isn't working well. Okay.
It's already not going. If I haven't touched it in a long time, it's not going too well. Maybe it's time for the scrap pile for that one, or just or do something else over. But that's not to say I haven't gone back and worked on it. But I do work on. I like working on a lot of things at one time. It's just refreshing for me because I enjoy when the energy is high. I mean, lots of people do. They love when they're feeling, like, so when I'm really great feeling about the painting, it's more fun. So sometimes I'm trying to put it down so it doesn't get boring for the viewer too, because if I'm painting a boring painting, if it's boring for me, it's probably most likely going to be boring for the person that's looking at it. So trying not to make boring things for people. I'm trying to make more exciting things.
Sophia, could we go back to the slides of Brian? We have some shots of Brian's various studios, and I think it gives us a little bit of insight into how he works and the different places he's worked over the years and different, he has these huge paintings for most of them. And there's those scrolls again. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a funny story because basically the show that we did, Catch the Butterfly at the museum there, I went to the Velvet Mill to see if they had space there in Stonington, the Velvet Mill in Stonington. And if anybody's been there, it's a massive space. It's an old Velvet Mill. And there's just a lot of space. There's a lot of galleries there. I think there's a restaurant there, artist studios and everything there. And so I met with the owner and I was like, I'm looking for a space, not too big, because I didn't really want to spend too much money and like blah, blah, blah. So anyways, he's like, I have this space. It's kind of like, really wasn't an artist space. It was kind of upstairs in this, like, it was a huge space, but it was a storage space. It was beautiful because the factory is kind of beautiful. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And he didn't really want much money for it. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that space, so I made all these tables and basically I ended up it was like, I don't know, it was a huge space, like 20,000 square. It was massive. I thought I was going to be able to do this in a small space and just hang them and let them dry. By the end, I had my butterflies everywhere there. Every floor was covered because they were like 20 feet long and like they didn't dry hanging. I couldn't hang them drying because they would cling together and then they would stick together. So I basically used it was a blessing that he like let me use that space. And then in the end, he kind of donated it. He let me just work there for the whole year. I was using it for a year and he kind of like, didn't charge me or anything. It was really nice of him to let me use that space. But it was just so funny how in serendipity, like, and there was this ladder, this industrial ladder that you can climb. It was like stairs. And so it was funny that I had this idea before that I was just going to do it in a small space and hang them organizedly, but there's no possible way I could. I had like that, see that table? I had like 6 of those tables.
Oh, wow.
And they were like 30 feet long, like 5 sawhorses under each one, like just plywood, but still like, it was a great time, it was, I had, and but like, I killed some of my friends because they came, my family members, everybody, like everybody learned about silk screening because that actually shows the process called silk screening. And that's what, if nobody knows, it's what Andy Warhol used. It's a photographic process, and then you push it through a mesh cloth, and it makes these prints like this that you see. That's kind of universal, so you can reprint them over and over again. So anyways, that's the story of that one. The one to the right was another beautiful, I just like to show this one because this was a studio that Paul Esser and I had that we met in 2010 in New London. And this was also a great space. I think there's a restaurant downstairs now, R6 or I forgot the name of R16 or something like that, and it was the old LNG, and we had the floor above it. And this was also a very big space. And I was having a show in Chelsea, which was, the gallery was very big. So it was very nice to have this big studio. And talking about like influences, you can see the wall there in the background, this decay, sort of the bricks and then the burned paint and everything. That kind of is like a love affair, sort of how my paint's going on there. Just that wall sort of is like something I find so beautiful. So anyways, that's the studio that we had
really well against it. Actually, they look like
they belong there.
Perfect there. Yeah.
So that show. I had a lot of big paintings because it was a big show too in Chelsea. So there's big walls. This was the one I had in Old Lyme, behind the church, the big church, the Congregational Church, and Ferry Road. And this was a barn, and it was above, and it was a beautiful barn. It was just like the light was beautiful. It wasn't north light. I have actually, the studio I have now is quite fabulous. It's old, it was a painter's studio, and it's like, it has the north light and everything, which is not, I mean, it's important, but it's not so important for me. But this one didn't have that, but it was just beautiful anyways, I've had a lot of beautiful studios. Actually, I see some people on there that let me use their studio. Mike and Faye, they're on the chat, and they let me use their studio a long time ago. They had a beautiful space, and they let me use their space. And I've had a lot, like, I should do a little trail in Old Lyman because I've lived here, and for a while, like, I thought it was fun to move around studios. So I had a lot of beautiful studios in Lyman, Old Lyme. Like, I've gone to quite a few different ones, but these are just a few of them that I had. Now I don't find it so fun to move studios. I changed my mind.
And there's that rug again in the last shot.
That's the rug, that rug has been traveling around.
Yeah, you've been living with these influences for a while.
Yeah, that one wasn't too long ago, that studio. That was the one before this studio. So, and that's, again, the New London one. And I had two shows there in that. When I was in that show, I had one at the Diane Birdsall Gallery, and then the one in Chelsea at Bertrand Delacroix Gallery, which he was a gallery dealer of mine for like, I don't know, like 8-10 years, really long time. Unfortunately, he passed away. But.
So let's look at some of the past exhibitions. I think some of these paintings we're going to see again. There's some of your scrolls from the Diane Birdsall Gallery. Yeah, this is the Diane Birdsall, and you saw those scrolls that were in that studio, because this is one of the shows that I had when I was in that space. And this one, Mary, is sort of Mary's traditional painting with installation as well, which is nice. There's another shot of it. Oops. And this is the Delacroix Gallery, right? Yeah, that's a shot. Yeah. And there's some of the paintings we saw in the studio in New London. Like, for example, that swan back there, that one was like 7 feet, just to give you 7 feet by like 6 feet, or 8 feet by 6 feet. Wow. And that cow is a triptych. This is a fabulous show that we did. Paula and I did together. The reason we collaborate on like lots of things. We've had a lot of shows together, and this one was a beautiful show. I love this show. This show was at the Hoxie Gallery, which is a space in the old library. It's the library in Westerly, and it has this beautiful, what I find beautiful space there. It's a big open space. And the theme of this one was, the title is Rain, Rain, Go Away. So it was in a library. So we wanted to like use, I guess it's kind of tying to what I just did now. It's like, Rain, Rain, Go Away, little Susie wants to play, that fable. It's not a fable, like a nursery rhyme. Yeah. So we hung all white clothes. You walked underneath this. I don't care if you can tell, but you can walk into the space and you can walk under the clotheslines, because I love clotheslines, and it's a little bit past here in America that nobody uses them, except a few people, and I'm just attracted to the clotheslines, and so we painted sun on them and rain, so it was a very playful, like, interactive walking piece. You want to say something?
Yeah, it was just about like innocence and purity, and the idea of cleanliness, and idea of past where there were still natural ways to do things versus what is going on now, and like, even my upbringing, when we don't had I didn't have a clothes dryer in my house. It was like something very strange when I moved here, the machine, and we had actually different places to donate the clothing to us, like a secondhand clothing places. And then we had those shoes, which we painted blue, like puddles. And it was very fun because the walls at the gallery were made out of some sort of a cloth. So we could use Velcro and stick the shoes into the wall. So it just built like this wonderful place and immersive because the room was really big and people could walk in and just like be inside this.
Yeah, so
world.
I gave the shoes kind of looked like they were dancing on the walls, and they didn't stick always, so they kind of fell. So it was like it kind of worked out perfect.
Dancing in the rain.
Dancing in the rain. Yeah, it's just it kind of was a really beautiful like installation when you walked in there because it had natural light. It's just like a spot you wouldn't even think in this library, and I just jumped on it when I saw the space. I was like, oh, I want to have a show there. I always love having shows, and it was like let's find out if we can have a show there. It's like something together there. You see like the natural light coming in from the top.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so very different than the rest of your shows.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the shows that we do together kind of have a similar, like, different things like this. I mean, it's a little bit more installation, not always, because Paula does photography, but she is a theater base, so a lot of it is has a play like with theater. So
yeah, this is another one of my questions, and I think is there another a slide from another show that the two of you did together, or am I remembering wrong?
Well, that one the butterfly one we kind of did together. I didn't put anything. There's nothing else here. I mean, I could have put a lot more.
I thought there was another one, but I was hoping you could tell us, maybe both of you could tell us about what it's like to work in a sort of collaboration. And how it's different from each of your own practices when you work together.
For us, it was basically our love affair when we met. Like that's what it was art right away. So for us, it's not like a separation. It's our kind of us being together. Like is our art it is our art. We just have been doing it from when we met each other. So I don't know if there definitely is a separation because we do different things, but we also are always like asking each other's opinions and stuff. It makes it easier because you have like somebody to talk to right there. So in a way, it's actually kind of great. You can just bounce ideas off each other and you can trust that person because you value their opinion, because that's basically our attraction was we liked what the other person was doing right away. So, and we kept that up, and we, obviously you have your ups and downs, but it's just like, it's fun, I think it's like, it's kind of a blessing because art kind of to me is everything you do, like around, like the way you create your house, the way you move through life and everything. And to be able to do that with somebody else, for me, is quite, I really enjoy it. So I think Anya is too. She's still here. So
yeah,
she's still here.
She didn't leave, so she's having fun too. So we're excited to push that because we haven't really put that out. It's called Fail Blue, actually, our collaboration. And silly story that we came up with this because one time we were doing something in the studio, nothing with blue. And Phthalo blue, if anybody knows when they paint with it, it's just very strong color. It whatever you mix with it, it just takes over. Like I do use it sometimes because I love how intense it is, but it just takes over. We left the studio and we both had blue all over us. So we kind of played with that word Phthalo blue. It's not spelled that. It's like FAFLBLU. So that's kind of what our collaboration is.
And it's also open, to other influences too. We could just something that it could evolve and invite other artists. And
yeah, so we've had quite a lot of shows, but even like the show that you see at the Lyman, Allyn, we both worked on that. Anya helped me a lot in organizing this, and the butterfly show also. So we kind of it's just kind of a fun it's a collaboration, it's a wonderful teamwork. And
it's a
perfect romance.
So many ways.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting late on time. I wanted to ask if anybody else has some questions, any audience people want to jump in, or what you can do is, let's see if there's one in the chat or not. I think, oh, Sophia, did you get one from Frank? It looks like. What is it about this kind of art that you enjoy? I'm not sure which kind of already means. Frank, maybe you can tell us which kind, do you mean the installation art or
Yeah, I would say the installation. Is that an installation? Is you consider that performance art? I'm not sure. The videos that you did earlier.
oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was the question?
The question is, what is it about the videos that you did? What is it that you enjoy about that?
What do I enjoy?
Well, and putting it together, it's a process.
Yeah, it's a process. I think it kind of it gives another element to like the work as a painting, to remind you that a painting has other like it's not linear, the painting, there's other parts to it. So I think with making those videos as they are helps to the viewer to see that there is actually a whole process. There's a whole thing going on besides just a painting. The painting just didn't appear out of blue. The artist was in the studio working. There's a whole life that's created from the paint.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's like how I can explain that. And also, it's just that they were a little bit advertisements, if you want, for the shows, because we did them for shows. They were like part of the show. So here's my exhibition, and here's a video that we have made for it. So it's a little bit, they're a lot more for galleries, except like the museum pieces for you. They were in galleries. So
yeah, and they're just fun and lighthearted and charming. So I think everyone enjoys them. Another question from Tanya, our curator. Do you have any paintings in progress in the studio with you that you could show us? The one behind. It's
a little dark in here right now.
It's a little dark, but it looks like a diptych of swans.
There's another. Yeah, the diptych swans. My next show is called Kiss and Fly. Well, I already showed that one on you. I already showed. It's really wet. Be careful. Actually, that one's not. I don't know if you can see this one. This is another one I'm doing. I can't really see the computer. This is another one I'm doing.
That's great. Yeah, we can see that.
It's better like that. It's a little bit darker. It's not that bright. Yeah, I didn't really set it up. Here's another one. Here's my studio. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
The window. Here's my car. That's not a really good picture, right? Here's the couch. It's not huge, but it's a nice size. The wonderful thing about this studio actually was one of the last in the 20s, one of the last artists that was going to Florence Griswold. He built this house in this studio for his family, and this was his studio. And he was the last painter in the family that used it, and I turned it back into a studio. There was an apartment in here for a great aunt, and then there was like a pool table, and I came here. So I brought it back to being a studio. So the window is like from the 20s. Gregory Smith was the artist. He has a piece that's in the Florence Griswold. They had a couple pieces in the last show of his, like 3. And then there's a piece in the kitchen of his. They use it sometimes. It's like a little house, like a small, with a cat on it. So Gregory Smith. So that's kind of interesting, because I'm 4 houses, maybe 6 houses away from Florence Griswold on the same side, like right on the Lieutenant River. So it's like property that goes right down to the Lieutenant River. And this was his house, this studio in his house. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, studio's got a lot of history there.
History, and I brought it back to being a studio. So that's kind of nice to save it as a studio, because they make great dining rooms too, studios, but people turn into lots of great things, but I like them as studios.
No, I'm glad you're painting in it and not just playing pool. All right, does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap up? No? Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. I think it was a great chat with Brian. Thank you so much for doing this, Brian, and Paula. Thank you so much for joining us too. It was great to get your perspective on some of the joint ventures, and I know you were deeply involved in the show at the Lyman Allyn. So it's been great to see you both again, and to see you all here. I hope you will all, if you haven't seen the show, please do come. It's open until the 9th of May. If you have seen the show, come back and see it again. We have other things to see too, and it's always wonderful to visit with Brian's paintings. So, oh,
Okay,
and
that's
the last
one,
show.
one quick
Yeah,
thing.
we mentioned this last bit.
I love this. I have to just say one thing before we close. I love this because that's the old Volvo we have, and the whole show. That is the whole show, the butterfly show. That's the whole butterfly show. It's all rolled up in little scrolls, and and I love how small it is. You know, it was a big room, and we filled up the whole room with it. But that's how big it was. Like,
Right.
nicely packed in the car.
Half show will travel. Yeah.
Half show will travel in an old car.
That's right.
For sure.
For sure. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.